Late 1970s, Avenue X, Brooklyn. A blue neon sign flickered above a neighborhood bar, casting cold light across empty sidewalks. The Gemini Lounge looked like a dozen other social clubs scattered through Canarsie. Dim windows, peeling paint, music bleeding through brick walls. Men drifted in and out, collars turned up against winter wind. Locals knew the place, a spot for drinks, card games, neighborhood talk. But they also sensed something else. They sensed reasons to walk past quickly after dark. They noticed certain cars idled outside with their lights off, engines running, exhaust clouds hanging in frozen air. They noticed some people entered through the back door and were never seen leaving at all. Inside, the front room hummed with low conversation. Sinatra on the jukebox, whiskey glasses catching ember light. But past the bar, beyond a door most customers never noticed, something else operated. A system so efficient, so brutal, it would become legendary even among men who made their living through violence. For roughly 6 years, this ordinary building on a residential Brooklyn street concealed one of the most prolific murder operations in American organized crime history. Bodies disappeared here. Evidence vanished. Witnesses went silent. And the neighborhood, controlled by fear and loyalty in equal measure, kept its secrets. The Gemini Lounge was never just a bar. It was a factory. And its product was death. Roy DeMeo didn't look like a monster. Born in Bath Beach in 1940, he grew up in the tight-knit Italian-American neighborhoods where family loyalty meant everything and outsiders meant nothing. Short, stocky, with thinning hair and thick glasses, he could have been an accountant or a used car salesman. In some ways, he was both. DeMeo understood numbers. He understood systems. And by his early 20s, he'd already built a profitable business in stolen cars, moving hot vehicles through chop shops and export channels with the precision of a legitimate operation. But DeMeo had something else. A capacity for violence that existed without rage, without emotion, without hesitation. He killed the way other men filed paperwork. Methodically, efficiently, with an eye toward reducing complications. By 1966, he'd attracted the attention of Anthony Gaggi, a Gambino family soldier with connections that reached all the way to Paul Castellano, the family's business-minded underboss. Gaggi recognized something valuable in DeMeo. Not just muscle, the family had plenty of that. DeMeo brought organizational skill. He brought profit. And he brought a willingness to handle problems that even hardened mobsters found distasteful. Gaggi sponsored DeMeo's entry into the Gambino family, and within a few years, DeMeo had assembled his own crew. They weren't traditional mobsters. Chris Rosenberg, a Jewish kid from Brooklyn who couldn't be made but ran with DeMeo's operation anyway, had a taste for cocaine and an addiction to violence that worried even his associates. Joey Testa and Anthony Center, childhood friends who grew up together in Canarsie, became the crew's most reliable killers. Henry Borelli handled logistics. Freddie Denome worked the car operation. And at the center, orchestrating everything, sat Roy DeMeo. They were thieves first. The crew specialized in stealing luxury cars, Porsches, Mercedes, Cadillacs, altering VINs and shipping them to buyers in Kuwait, Lebanon, and other Middle Eastern markets hungry for American status symbols. The money flowed fast, tens of thousands monthly. But the car operation created problems. Owners reported thefts, police investigated, competitors muscled in, and loose ends accumulated. DeMeo needed a place to handle these complications, somewhere controlled, somewhere the crew could operate without witnesses, without interference, without leaving evidence that could connect them to the growing list of people who needed to disappear. The Gemini Lounge, owned by associates of the crew and located at 4021 Flatlands Avenue in Canarsie, became that place by 1977 or 1978. From the outside, nothing distinguished the Gemini from any other social club. A single-story building with a bar in front, living quarters in back, and a basement below. The front room operated legitimately enough. Neighborhood guys stopping in for drinks, regulars playing cards, music and conversation filling the space with ordinary noise. But the back apartment, accessed through a door behind the bar, belonged exclusively to the crew. And the basement, reached by a narrow staircase, became something else entirely. DeMeo's genius lay in his understanding of evidence. Bodies created cases. Forensic pathologists could determine time of death, cause of death, identity. Witnesses could place victims with suspects. Physical evidence, blood, fibers, fingerprints, linked criminals to crimes. But if there was no body, there was no murder case, just a missing person. And in neighborhoods where people disappeared for dozens of reasons, gambling debts, family problems, voluntary relocation, missing persons rarely generated intensive investigation. So DeMeo developed a method. The Gemini Method, as it became known in law enforcement circles and criminal lore, worked with industrial efficiency. A target would be lured to the lounge, usually by someone he trusted, often under the pretense of a meeting, a car deal, or a simple social visit. He'd be walked through the front bar, past the regulars who knew to keep their eyes on their drinks, through the back door into the apartment. The moment he crossed that threshold, the ambush began. A crew member would shoot the victim in the head from behind. Often, DeMeo himself fired the kill shot, though other members rotated the role depending on who was present. Instantly. No conversation. No warning. The body would drop, and within seconds, other crew members would wrap towels around the head to contain blood spatter. They'd lift the corpse and carry it immediately down the basement stairs while the wound was still pumping. Minimizing the blood trail, speed mattered. Every second counted. In the basement, the body would be placed near a floor drain that allowed fluids to wash away. The crew would hang the corpse upside down, letting gravity drain the remaining blood while they prepared their tools. Knives, a small saw, heavy plastic sheeting, cleaning supplies. What happened next was dismemberment, conducted with grim efficiency. Through repetition, they learned where to cut to minimize resistance and mess, which joints to separate, which cuts would be cleanest, how to package the pieces to minimize detection. Body parts went into plastic bags, then into cardboard boxes, and finally into garbage bags. The packages were designed to look and smell like ordinary trash. And in the industrial Brooklyn of the late 1970s, with sanitation workers accustomed to hauling away all manner of refuse from restaurants, butcher shops, and markets, these bags simply disappeared into the city's waste stream. The entire process was often completed within a few hours. The efficiency was horrifying. But what made the Gemini method truly terrifying was its frequency. This wasn't an occasional solution to major problems. It became routine, standard operating procedure. Murders occurred regularly for several years, sometimes in quick succession. The psychological weight of murders seemed to disappear for some crew members. The work became mechanical, systematic, stripped of hesitation. Estimates of the DeMeo crew's body count vary wildly. Law enforcement sources suggest at least 75 murders. Some investigators believe the number exceeded 200. The exact figure will never be known because so few bodies were ever recovered. The Gemini method worked precisely as designed. Evidence simply ceased to exist. The victims included rival car thieves who threatened the crew's territory, drug dealers who owed money or knew too much, associates who became liabilities through addiction, instability, or loose talk. Chris Rosenberg's cocaine habit made him reckless. His public displays of wealth attracted attention. His violent outbursts created problems. When he was killed in May 1979, lured to a location by friends who told him DeMeo needed to see him, then shot outside his vehicle. Many suspected DeMeo's involvement, even though the crew leader claimed ignorance about who'd ordered the hit. His body was found on the ground, another victim of the violent world he'd helped create. Crew members showed signs of stress and paranoia over time. Some seemed entirely unburdened by the violence. They joked about it, competed over their roles, treated murder like any other skill to be perfected. Others showed cracks, glances over shoulders, assumptions that everyone might be a threat. And DeMeo himself, the architect of the system, began showing signs of strain. He installed surveillance equipment around his home and vehicles. He varied his routes. He trusted fewer people. The organizational genius who'd built an empire on efficiency started seeing threats everywhere, because by 1980, those threats were real. The car theft operation that funded everything was generating massive profits. The crew was moving an estimated 30 to 70 stolen vehicles per month through their export channels, earning between $2,000 and $5,000 per car. That translated to roughly $90,000 to $350,000 monthly. Serious money even by Gambino family standards. But the operation's scale attracted federal attention. The FBI had been watching DeMeo since the mid-1970s. Surveillance teams intermittently photographed crew members and tracked their movements. Informants provided fragments of intelligence about cars, about money, about meetings. Financial investigations traced the money flows, but the Bureau struggled to build a murder case because the fundamental element, bodies, didn't exist. Missing persons reports piled up. Families filed complaints. But without remains, without crime scenes, without physical evidence, prosecutors had nothing to charge. The car theft angle offered a different approach. Federal prosecutors could build conspiracy cases around the vehicle trafficking. They could follow the money. They could flip lower-level associates who handled the mechanical work, the paperwork, the shipping logistics. And in 1980, that's exactly what they started doing. Pressure mounted from another direction as well. Paul Castellano, who'd become the Gambino family boss after Carlo Gambino's death in 1976, ran the organization like a corporation. He valued discipline, discretion, and profit. DeMeo's car operation generated excellent revenue, which Castellano appreciated. But the murders created liabilities. Each killing risked exposure. Each missing person generated police investigation. And DeMeo's crew, increasingly unhinged, was becoming impossible to control. Worse, from Castellano's perspective, was the drug involvement. The Gambino boss had instituted a strict no-narcotics policy, understanding that drug cases brought enhanced federal scrutiny and harsher sentences. But DeMeo's crew was deeply involved in cocaine trafficking. Rosenberg had been dealing heavily before his death. Other crew members maintained connections to drug suppliers and distributors. The money was too good to ignore, even if it violated family rules. Castellano summoned DeMeo for increasingly tense meetings. The message was clear: reduce the violence, shut down the drug operations, lower the profile. But DeMeo was trapped. His crew's efficiency at making problems disappear had created an expectation within the broader Gambino family. When someone became a liability, DeMeo got the call. His reputation as a reliable problem solver meant he couldn't simply stop without appearing weak or unreliable. And in the Mafia, appearing weak was often fatal. By 1982, DeMeo knew he was in trouble. His mentor, Anthony Gaggi, was facing his own legal problems and couldn't provide the political protection that had kept DeMeo safe within the family hierarchy. Federal investigators were closing in on the car theft operation, and whispers circulated that Castellano had authorized a hit DeMeo responded by becoming even more paranoid. He carried weapons constantly. He traveled with armed crew members. He checked his car for bombs before starting the engine. He changed his patterns, trusted almost no one. But he kept operating. The Gemini Lounge remained active. The car thefts continued. The occasional murder still occurred. January 10th, 1983. Sunrise Highway, Brooklyn. A maroon Cadillac sat in the parking lot of a boat shop, engine cold, windows frozen. A patrol officer noticed the vehicle during his morning rounds. It had been there overnight, unusual for the location. He called it in. When detectives arrived and looked inside, they found Roy DeMeo in the trunk, shot 7 times. The overkill suggested rage, fear, or both. The location, a public parking lot rather than the Gemini's basement, indicated something had changed. This wasn't a clean disappearance. This was a message. The murder was almost certainly ordered by Castellano, though the killers were never definitively identified. Many investigators believe members of his own crew, possibly Joey Testa and Anthony Center, the 2 most reliable killers, carried out the hit. The method echoed dozens of hits they'd conducted together, except this time their boss was the target. In the Mafia's brutal calculus, DeMeo had become a bigger liability than asset. His paranoia made him unpredictable. His knowledge made him dangerous. And his habit of solving problems with murder meant his own death was handled the same way. With DeMeo gone, the crew collapsed rapidly. Anthony Gaggi was arrested on federal racketeering charges in 1984 and died in prison 4 years later. Joey Testa and Anthony Center were arrested, tried, and convicted of multiple murders in 1989, receiving life sentences. Henry Borelli was convicted and received life without parole, never cooperating with authorities. Dominic Montilio, a Gambino associate connected to the crew, turned government witness and testified about the Gemini Method in graphic detail. His testimony in the mid-1980s finally revealed the full extent of what had happened inside the lounge. Other crew members were killed, arrested, or disappeared into witness protection. The Gemini Lounge itself was raided repeatedly in the years following DeMeo's death. Federal agents tore through the building looking for evidence. Agents reported finding what appeared to be old blood traces in the basement, though not enough for forensic confirmation after years of thorough cleaning. They found paperwork related to the car theft operation, but the physical evidence of specific murders remained elusive. The method had worked too well. By the mid to late 1980s, the building had changed hands. New owners, unconnected to the criminal past, attempted to erase the dark history. The bar closed. Renovations began. And in the early 1990s, in a transformation that seemed almost deliberately symbolic, the space became a church. Worshippers gathered where bodies had been dismembered. Prayers echoed in rooms where murder had been routine. The neighborhood, slowly gentrifying, attracted residents who had no idea what had happened beneath their feet. But the legend of the Gemini Lounge endured. In law enforcement circles, it became a case study in organized crime efficiency. The Gemini Method entered the vocabulary of criminal investigation, representing a category of murder defined by its systematic approach to evidence elimination. Documentaries, books, and true crime examinations returned repeatedly to this ordinary building on Flatlands Avenue in Canarsie, trying to understand how such extraordinary violence could operate hidden in plain sight for roughly 6 years. The story reveals something fundamental about organized crime's operation in late 20th century New York. The Mafia's power rested not just on violence, but on community complicity. Neighborhoods like Canarsie weren't terrorized into silence. They were structured around silence. Loyalty to the family, whether biological or criminal, superseded civic duty. Witnessing a crime meant nothing if speaking about it meant endangering yourself or your relatives. The social fabric itself became an accomplice. The Gemini Lounge also demonstrates the intersection of business acumen and brutality that define successful organized crime operations. DeMeo wasn't simply a killer. He was an entrepreneur who understood systems, logistics, and profit margins. The car theft operation generated wealth. The murder operation protected that wealth by eliminating threats. The two functions existed symbiotically, each enabling the other's success. And finally, the crew's eventual destruction illustrates organized crime's inherent instability. The same violence that builds power eventually consumes it. DeMeo's efficiency at solving problems made him valuable until it made him too dangerous. His crew's loyalty held until self-preservation became more important. The family structure that protected him withdrew that protection when the cost-benefit analysis shifted. In the end, the system he'd perfected was used against him. The building still stands on Flatlands Avenue in Canarsie, unassuming among the residential blocks and small businesses. Sunlight hits the same brick walls. Cars pass on the same street. But the blue neon sign is long gone. The bar is closed. The basement is quiet. And somewhere in the city's infrastructure, flowing through sewers and waste streams and landfills, are the ghosts of bodies that were never found, victims of an ordinary building's extraordinary secret.